Welcome back to AFTV, everyone. This is the preview for Arsenal versus Fulham here at our beautiful 60,000-seater stadium. And 60,000 fans will be trying to get in, hoping for no ticket trouble this time, Turkey.
Yeah, hopefully they sorted that mess out. It needs to be sorted out because that was unacceptable. And the change, there isn't really much sense to it. It just seems to be going along with how the world is into a more digital age.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I prefer having that paper form ticket. Because I've got a lot of tickets from hybrid days where I look back on, and when I'm talking to my son when he's old enough, I can tell him about this game, that game. Look at this ticket from the 90s, or look at this ticket from the early 2000s, the Invincible season. Now it's going all digital. I'm not a big fan of that.
I actually completely and utterly agree. I think you want that physical copy. Like, I think, listen, if I want it on Apple Pay or Apple Wallet, whatever, I can do that. But yeah, I'm completely with you. Let's talk obviously about on-field matters now. It is Arsenal versus Fulham. As Cecil kind of quite rightly pointed out in the breaking news video we did, Gabriel Jesus is back in full training, and it feels like he could be on the brink of a return against Fulham like he was last year. We'll touch on injury news and stuff a little bit later, but you know, that is kind of fresh news that he's back training with the group. But it feels too soon for this game.
It feels soonish. I think, we'll delve into my thoughts on this game soon and how I expect it to go. And if how I expect it to go becomes a reality on Saturday, then I also expect to see Jesus for 15, maybe 20 minutes.
Oh, do you think he'll be in the squad?
Yeah. I mean, if you're back into full training, that means you're pretty much ready. And what you're lacking is the match sharpness. And if we want him completely ready for Man United, then ideally we roll over Fulham and give him 15-20 at the end.
Well, you know what, and I'd agree with you. The problem is there's an obscurity in the way it's been reported, because he's back in training and you see him doing the warm-up with the core group. Whether he goes off to do something separate after, we're not 100% sure of. But I agree with you. Ultimately, if he's trained fully with the team, you kind of think, well, let's see if he can get some minutes on the weekend. But let's talk about the game in itself. And I want to just go around the context of, I can't believe it's game week 3. It feels like we're already just talking about the Community Shield and Wembley and all that. And here we are already sort of talking about our third game, and chance to go and get ourselves, up to 9 points on the table. If we get this win, of course, 2 out of 2 in our opening 2 games. We beat Forest and Palace in games that I don't think we were anywhere near our best. But I also think the scorelines flatter the opposition a little bit, because I think Arsenal have had a degree of comfort in both games.
Definitely a degree of comfort, for sure. And if you're looking at it from a comfort point of view, then maybe the scorelines don't reflect, the reality. But at the same time, if you look at the amount of chances created over the 2 games, I think scoring 3 over those 2 is quite a good output in terms of chance created. Now, what the problem with that for me is that I want to see more chances created. And I think that will come, and I hope it comes against Fulham, because it's ideal. Fulham at the Emirates, I said this about Forest at the Emirates, but it didn't work out that way. So yeah, we've been very comfortable, but at the same time, it's at the detriment of our transition and our attacking third.
Because he's been trying new things. It's been Partey at right back, and there is a Predicted 11 show with me and Cecil coming out, so do look out for that on the channel. But we know he's tried different things, and he's kind of changed the dynamics, and weirdly, it feels like he's doing it to get extra attackers in, to get Havertz in, who's a floating player who sometimes goes in beyond or whatever, and then you still got that crux of Rice and Partey building and Ødegaard in there. It feels like it should be more attacking. Yet going forward, we don't look as fluid and as natural as we did last season. And weirdly, taking a natural defender out and messing around with the back 4 hasn't impacted us defensively. If anything, I think we've looked more solid. It's quite strange, because the whole trend through pre-season was they're cutting through us. Yeah, we're playing some nice football, but in transition we look appalling. We haven't seen that in these opening 2 games.
Yeah, I wouldn't say appalling, but
in pre-season it felt like we
there was time for
very
sure.
open.
That Man United game was one, balls over the top were killing us. But I look at the setup last season, I look at the setup this season, and in terms of transition, every part of our transition's been affected somewhat. Centrally, our transition's been affected by the arrival of Declan Rice. Partey's maybe new position moving forward. On the wings, Martinelli was used to having Zinchenko behind him and Xhaka in the 8. In the first couple of games, it's been Tomiyasu and Timber, and then he's got Havertz in the 8. On Saka's side, he's used to an overlapping Ben White. This time round, it's not an overlapping Ben White he's been getting in the first 2 games. So literally every part of our transition has been affected. So I guess it's expected that there'll be some, some concerns early on, teething issues. But I think the wins are most important when you're going through something like this. Then at the same time, is it the right thing to go into a new season off the back of one of your best seasons in a long time, trying to do something new.
Yeah, well, Zinchenko got minutes against Palace when he came on. So do you think there is a predicted 11 show, as I mentioned, where we really delve into it, but is there a theory that now he's got these minutes, we might restore to something a little bit more familiar come this game?
Has to be. I mean,
it's what I want.
We lost Timber in game week 1, we lost Tomiyasu in game week 2. Tierney's not even training with the first team squad. So I think it picks itself. I expect to see Zinny there. And overall last season, Zinny was a big player for us.
Yeah.
He helps move us forward the amount we did last season. He was part of that. So yes, people can look at the defensive mistakes across the season, particularly at the back end, which was part of the reason why it cost us. I think overall Zinny's been a great player for us in his first season, and I think with Timber out especially, he retained his spot. I put him ahead of Tomiyasu in that position for sure.
Yeah, and what are you expecting from Fulham? Because I've sort of followed their 2 games quite closely, obviously knowing that they were coming up, this Emirates game here. And Everton, they won 1-0, which, listen, we haven't done that in years. So don't get me wrong, to go to Goodison Park and win opening game of the season, they're going to be buoyant about a new season and all that. It's a good result, but make no mistake, Everton had a lot of chances in that game. Could easily and should easily have been ahead. Bernd Leno, who we know is returning to the Emirates after being here for however many years, he had a really good game there. And then Brentford beat them 3-0, but an unfortunate red card to Tim Ream means he's missing out. I thought that was very harsh. I don't know if on another day, if he stays on, maybe they pull themselves back in it because they're only 1-0 down at that point. They had the odd chance. I just think with Fulham, a 3-0 defeat and the amount of chances they conceded at Everton despite winning that game, Arsenal should be feeling like if they can go through the gears, they are going to have chances in this game.
I agree. Like I mentioned earlier, I think now this is the game where we want to see a bit more of a free-flowing Arsenal side. One that doesn't see Martinelli cutting every opportunity he gets to go on the outside, because we saw a lot of that in the last game out, and that's not Martinelli to me. So in the first 2 games, because of the new system and the new style of play, maybe we've been a bit reserved with it. But essentially, when you look at the system and style of play, the idea behind it is not to be reserved. It's to be quite an attacking side. Controlling side, but an attacking side that creates chances. So looking at Fulham, I think, especially in the first 2 games and the bits and bobs I've seen of them, this game bodes well for us this weekend, especially coming just before Man United next week. I think this is the game where Arsenal spread their wings. This new system, we can see it in full flow.
Yeah, I really hope so. I'm thinking back to the games against Fulham in recent times. Arteta, I believe, has played them here twice. A 1-1 draw when Eddie Nketiah got a 97th minute equaliser on our road to 8th place. We remember the scenes and celebrations. I think we all thought, not the season for it. But look, in fairness, Eddie Nketiah has grown in that time. Arsenal have grown for sure in that time. And last year, I think Lee Judge said on the Invincibles podcast, it's exactly a year to the day that we're playing Fulham here again. And it was, it was a weird game because we played quite well in that game. Jesus looked electric and all that. But, it took us having gone 1-0 down to the Gabriel error, Mitrovic putting them 1-0 up. Arsenal had to really work hard, and then Gabriel, makes amends for that error by getting us the win in the 88th minute, 86th, whatever it was. And Arsenal have actually had a bit of trouble with Fulham, despite them having been a newly promoted side last season, a side that ended up getting relegated when we drew 1-1 with them here as well. We've had trouble here. Yeah. But you'd hope that Arsenal have kicked on, and now we've played another however many 45 or however many Premier League games since that one. You'd hope they'd be kind of ready for this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you mentioned Mitrovic, and I think I'll start there by saying it's a welcome loss from an Arsenal perspective, because that's a player that, not only with Arsenal, but he gets under defenders' skin. He's not the type of striker defenders want to come up against, and we saw that last season. It was through his hard work and pressure that Gabriel made that mistake, and we went 1-0 down in that game. So Mitrovic not being there is a big loss for Fulham and a big W for Arsenal. It should be. Jimenez comes in to replace him, and Jimenez hasn't been the same player since that horrific injury against Arsenal. So I look at Fulham's side, and I think Pereira's the one to watch out of all of them. But I'm not worried, James.
Well, let's list some other players they've got. Bernd Leno, as I mentioned, returning. Did you like Bernd Leno as a goalkeeper at Arsenal?
Yeah, I think he was a good goalkeeper. Yeah. I mean, he's not a modern day goalkeeper, but in terms of what an old school goalkeeper and the requirements of them, I think he was a pretty good keeper.
I like him. I know that it's not a long pool of players to pick out from, but I think he was one of the better Emirates era goalkeepers.
Without a doubt. I mean, I've got a soft spot for Szczesny because he came through the academy and anytime we played against Tottenham, he was on it.
Yeah, he was.
So I've got a soft spot for him, but overall it didn't work out. So if we're talking overall, I think Leno is probably the best keeper we had in the Emirates here prior to Ramsdale coming in.
And one of the best wingers we've had at the Emirates era, Willian.
One that Arteta quickly learned from, and I like that a lot because when Willian came in, I thought, what is going on? I can understand you need experience and you need winners in the side, but I was tired of Arsenal signing players that have won down the road at Chelsea, players that have done it all, and really at the back end of their career, they're looking more for comfort than ambition. But what I loved about it is the next season he was gone. And that under Wenger, we never used to do that. We used to buy players, and if they didn't work out, we'd still see them in the starting line at 5 years down the line. So again, when he came in, I was looking at Arteta sideways. A year later, I was giving Arteta credit for moving him on swiftly. Yeah,
I hear that. João Palhinha is going to make a return after a shoulder injury. He was quoted to West Ham, £90 million they wanted. I think that's what happens when you charge 105 for Declan Rice. And listen, Rice is much better, but that's kind of the way the market's been moving. He was brilliant last season and he's good on the ball, but really like his ball-winning ability in the duels, he looked really good.
He's a bit of a monster. You look at him and you don't see a monster, but when you see him on that pitch and the way he moves, the work he puts in, he's not scared to go in. He's actually been a revelation for Fulham, in my opinion. And I think he deserves to be playing for a better club. But at the same time, if you look at his age and the prices quoted for midfielders now, you know, he didn't get his move this summer.
Another player that is available for them, Adama Traore, made the move from Wolves. Do you know what it is about Traore, okay? Don't get me wrong. Yes, there have been questions over his output. Yes, there have been questions over his consistency and all that. I just think when you've got that pace and power, you will cause problems. And if not, and even if you're not, the fact that you have that weapon means the opposition thinks about that. And so when we're talking about Zinchenko returning to the 11, that's what I want to see, because I believe we should be playing to our strengths. But if Adama Traore is out on that right wing for them, I can't help but think they have a threat. We can have 95% possession, 20 shots to their 0. But if it's only 0-0 or 1-0, they've always got a chance because they've got an Adama Traore on the pitch.
He's a wild card.
Yeah.
And similar to what I said about Mitrovic, Adama Traore hasn't been a player that I've enjoyed playing against.
Yeah, not at all,
And to be honest, if you play this game 5 years ago with Mitrovic and Adama Traore on the side, you could bet money that Mitrovic is getting on the score sheet and Adama Traore is causing us big problems. Now we're in a much better place that I look at Adama Traore, I can say he's a wild card, but am I worried? No. I think Arteta's brought that confidence out of me now in terms of looking at the squad and looking at what we've done over the last 18, 24 months, not to worry about a player like Adama Traore. Can he cause problems? Yes. Will he? Maybe. But I think we have the tools to contain him. Yeah,
and I think it's so largely down about focus, because we defend as a team, we do everything as a unit, we get back well. So really, if we do our job, sure, we might offer something on the counter-attack, but you've got pacey defenders, White, Saliba, Gabriel, even Zinchenko's not slow. You know, so while I agree, wild card is absolutely the term, but I would hope Arsenal can deal with it, and I'm confident they can. Two players that are missing out because of the referee is Tim Ream and Tomiyasu. Look, you know more than anyone that I've said my piece on referees this week, so I won't say much more. I also did mention I thought the Tim Ream decision was a bit of a joke as well. Here we are, neither are available. We're just hoping for the referee not to be in the headlines again this week.
Tough ask. They tend to be in the headlines every week.
But you know what I'll say?
Game week 1, Onana, headlines. Game week 2, how many red cards, headlines. We're in game week 3 now, so they're pretty consistent.
But you know what? I will say, the referee's got to have an absolute disaster for them to be the reason why Arsenal don't win this game.
100%.
And what I want to say is that the reason I spoke out so much after Paris was because we won. We won, and I think speak from that position, because no one thinks you're salty and crying and all that. So use that position. But I do think in this game, look, unless he gives a red card for nothing in the 5th minute, I need to believe Arsenal. And look, by the way, a red card at 0-0 can impact that and make it very difficult for Arsenal. I'm not saying it shouldn't. But like I said, it has to be an absolute shocker for me to feel like, actually the ref was the reason and Arsenal not doing their job wasn't the reason.
100%. This is not one where if the referee does make a mistake, which is likely, I'm going to blame the ref for. Because even with a couple referee mistakes during the game, potentially on Saturday, I still expect us to win.
If he gives Fulham a penalty that isn't a pen, and we're 1-0 down, I still expect Arsenal to have enough to go and win this.
100%.
Now, I want to say that without showing disrespect to Fulham, because Marco Silva's done a brilliant job. I really rate him. They are good at getting into a deep block if you have to. They can play football as well. They've got actually quite a range of players that can kind of do different things. I like and rate Fulham, but we need to now start judging Arsenal to another standard. I was doing these previews a year ago going, yeah, but Fulham might be tricky, newly promoted, Bournemouth away, you never know. Arsenal have challenged for the title and then spent 200 million. Yeah. There's a certain standard we need to expect of the team now.
100%. And on the refs, you know, I've never trusted refs in general, more so now than ever.
Yeah.
Even Sunday League or Saturday League, you know, there doesn't tend to be that trust with referees. So what you have to do is don't rely on them. Don't give them decisions to make. You know,
yeah, that's true as well.
You know,
don't
be silly. Yeah. Don't kick the ball away in the first 5 minutes and get a yellow. Don't waste time on a throw-in, 1-0 up with half an hour to go and get a yellow, because it can cost you down the line. We've seen proof of that in the Community Shield with Thomas Partey. We've seen proof of that last time out with Tomiyasu. So as much as I don't agree with the red card, that time wasting, not just from Tomiyasu on the throw-in, it cost us by the end. Mm-hmm. And is it worth it? All right, we got the 3 points out of it, but it could have been, completely different, and it wouldn't have been. I still don't think the red card was worth it. So I think we've got to just go in with the mindset that the referee, don't rely on him, don't give him decisions to make, do your job, and let what happens with the refs happen, because something will happen.
I completely agree. Let's talk about the players we mentioned. Tomiyasu is unavailable because of the 2 yellows and a red. I believe you can't protest, or what's the word?
Appeal.
Appeal, thank you. You can't appeal 2 yellows, so okay. Well, I mean, that's another joke, but we move. Timber's out injured for long term, and we're just going to be saying that on every preview for the next 6-7 months. Tragic as it is, he's not going to be available. Jesus could be, as we touched on earlier, and I think that's pretty much it. There's no other major concerns in the squad that I can think of. Everyone else is fine. Raya is available.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I don't see any more issues.
No, fair enough. Let us know in the comments what you're making going into this game, Arsenal versus Fulham. It's the 3rd game of the season. It's Arsenal's 2nd home game, and it's Man United next. A chance to build a little bit of momentum, get up to speed. And I also think what happened with the ticketing issue last week, people I've spoken to said that it might have kind of had a little bit of an impact on the atmosphere. This is an opportunity to get another 3 points on the board if we can. Go and build on it. Go show Fulham what you're all about. Go show the Premier League what you're all about. And then go and get the momentum, get the home crowd ready for Manchester United the week after, which of course we'll be covering across the channel. There'll be a starting 11, watch along, and a full-time show on the weekend from about 1:30 p.m. UK time. So go check that all out. A big thanks to everyone who's joined us. We'll catch you very soon.